What is going on, everyone? My name is Jared and I am from TechWorks, and today we are going to talk about the iPhone 10. Now, we have pretty much talked about everything there is to talk about with the iPhone 10, from its specs to its features to what was new to what we did and didn't like. So why am I talking about it again? Well, it's been 6-7 months now, and how has this phone aged? A lot of times in time, phones either age well or age not so well. So today we're going to find out how the iPhone 10 did. Did it age like a fine wine, or did it kind of get too stinky like a piece of cheese? We're going to find out. So the iPhone 10 released on November 3rd in 2017, which touted Apple's new bezel-less design, its Face ID, its lack of Touch ID, and of course everyone's favorite, new gestures. And it was pretty controversial. It was really the first big step for Apple's phone design since like the whole unibody iPhone 5 and 6 design, that whole idea. But really, things hadn't changed in a long time for Apple, and this was a big step for them. Both having a glass back, wireless charging, the kind of small inclusion of quick charge when you have the right power brick, the different dual camera setup, stainless steel, all of that was really a big step for Apple. Obviously, they also included a new chipset. Their system on a chip is the A11 Bionic chip, which has proved to be a very powerful and a very good long-term chipset as far as the 6 or 7 month down the road look ahead. It's held up great against competition, with only things beating it are some of the new Snapdragon 845 devices and actual opening and closing of apps, not so much the actual benchmarks. Geekbench will still prove that this has a very, very powerful chipset, even compared to the Snapdragon 845. But if you look at some certain recent videos, especially with the OnePlus 6, opening and closing, RAM management, and things of that nature aren't necessarily the iPhone 10's strong point. And a lot of that may have to do with most phones now having 4 gigs of RAM as a base, and the iPhone 10 here having around 3. So maybe that's a difference. Maybe Apple will get on board with the 4 gig of RAM standard this coming year. Outside of that, how has the iPhone 10 aged? Well, pretty well. Obviously, when you have an iOS device, you're getting always the latest and greatest security patches, similar to what Pixel does with their phones. Apple, I've always been so impressed at how they release their updates, how they include every device they have, I guess generationally, whether it's carrier branded or unlocked or whatever, still gets the updates. And actually, this phone right now is running the latest iOS beta, which is 11.4. I believe it's on beta 4 or beta 5 right about now. With that said, they do a great job with their updates. And just for that alone, you're getting the latest system patches, the latest bug fixes. Everything that you need is there, versus waiting, say, like an OEM like Samsung, taking several months or sometimes longer to get the latest update to some of the latest phones. I mean, even my Pixel 2 XL, which was released last September, October, has a higher version dated than Android than the latest S9 Plus. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, since this, you've had several improvements to both, say, Animoji. You now have several more. You have, since the inclusion of iOS 11.3, if I could get it to open, you have the bear. You also have, I believe the skeleton was new, and the dragon, as well as, I really like the lion. I like how the hair moves from side to side. I thought it was a really nice included addition. So they've obviously been working, making their Face ID better, and I do believe that they'll just keep getting better generationally as we move forward. Maybe it's not working with my glasses. There we go. A little better eyebrow movement. But they have obviously been doing big things with their updates, and I definitely believe if they've spent this much time and money into Face ID, it's obviously going to become a staple for the next several generations of iOS devices. Everyone was complaining about the notch. A lot of Android manufacturers are now embracing that notch to maximize their screen real estate. And still picking up this phone, looking at the bezels, I'm still overall very impressed at how small the side bezels are. It's not so much the notch. To me, I don't care about the notch. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't infringe upon my daily life. But what matters most to me is looking down and seeing how minimal these bezels are, especially when you compare it to this guy over here, the Pixel 2 XL, which has still some pretty substantial bezels. Now I know we have dual facing front speakers here, but even on the side bezels where they could be smaller, they're not. And I believe that eventually the phone will just be all screen. There will be no bezel, there will be no notch, it'll just be screen, which will be super cool. So I think the design holds up in 2018. I think notches are going to be here for a while. It's just a way of making more screen space. Unfortunately, you have to put the earpiece and cameras and sensors somewhere, and that's how they're making it work. The interface of iOS really does not change. You have your control center up here, which a lot of people wishes it was still at the bottom, but I understand that for doing your gesture support that you need that space to not infringe with control center. Really, the phone has held up great. I can say that for a lot of iOS devices. They really do hold up for the test of time very well because of how much software support and how much updates they have and the way iOS runs on the devices. It's not nearly as fragmented as Android, and the Android landscape is in the software side of things. Every iPhone is running the same software, just like it is. Outside of that, the camera, now the whole thing is the megapixel count with cameras. The P20 Pro has a 40 megapixel shooter, which is just crazy. But when it comes down to it, if you're looking at a photo that you just point and shoot and take, really the iPhone is going to take a great photo. I'm not saying that there isn't better cameras out there in smartphones, and I'm not saying that the iPhone is the absolute best, but I'm saying you're not going to be disappointed, and a lot of the camera comparisons do come down to personal preference and how you like your shots. I'll show you just a few. I was out on the lake the other day, and whether this shows up great in the recording or not, photo came out fantastic. And I know I'm not doing a complete side-by-side with full resolution and things of that nature, but just as an example, I will show you my photo from my Pixel 2 XL, which I always would consider my favorite camera, and maximize it there. Damn. As you can see, even just looking at them through the viewfinder, looking down, they're both fantastic. These were taken at the same time, almost indistinguishable. Yes, each camera will have its benefits. Each camera will have its situations where one is better than the other, but that is with just about anything. That's just how it is. So overall, how's the iPhone done? It's done great. They've included more updates. They're continuing to include more updates. I know the new iPhones in the fall this will be a basis. The iPhone 10 will be no more, and it's gonna be kind of like the more normal design standard for the whole line of devices. With the cutout, maybe the cutout will get smaller. I hope Face ID gets faster. But right now, if you're looking to buy an iPhone, it is hard to not recommend the iPhone 10 as what I would call the best iPhone yet. And in terms of technology, always the next one is always going to be better than the previous. That's the whole idea about it. But right now, if you're going to buy an iPhone, you want to get the latest and greatest iPhone. This is it, with the 8 and 8 Plus being right on their heels. If you don't care so much about gestures and Face ID, you're still getting a great experience, the same chipset, the same or similar performance, maybe just not some fun features with Face ID in the camera. But how is it held up? The iPhone 10 is just like a fine wine. It has aged very gracefully. The battery has aged great. The performance has not slowed down, and it's certainly gonna hold out for much, much longer. And if you're a person that holds on to devices for 3-4 years, whatever, this will obviously go the distance as long as you're gentle with the glass and the display. So anyway, quick little video on how the iPhone 10 has aged, the state of iOS, I guess, and maybe where I see it in the future. iPhone 10 has certainly held out. It'll continue to hold out, and I'm sure it's only going to be topped by this coming year's iPhone. So again, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. The channel is growing, and it is making me so very happy. Thanks again, everybody. Please don't forget to like and comment, and I try to have conversations with everybody. I try to answer everybody, at least for right now. So thanks again for your support. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video. So long.